Sí, I could sell. I was interviewed for Fox Free News. Yeah. Missed it. Lydia sent me the link. I would think.
Good evening and welcome to Mifflin County High School. My name is Jade Rubel. I'm one of the assistant principals here at the school. I, along with Mr. Stephen Diarman, our other assistant principal, are pleased to be able to facilitate this event and want to thank you for joining us. Additionally, I would like to say thank you to Superintendent Mr. Vance Varner and the MCHS principal, Mr. Mark Crossan, for being proactive in allowing us to hold this event. Vaping in schools has been an ongoing issue. Each time we deal with a vaping scenario, we make a phone call home to make parent or guardian aware of the situation. And on numerous occasions, parents are unaware of what a vape is, what it looks like, or even the health implications it can have on their student. In light of some recent developments outlined in the letter sent by Mr. Varner on February 25th, we wanted to use this as an opportunity to bring together members of our community that are knowledgeable on this topic and create an educational experience for parents and other members of the community to learn about vaping and to highlight the resources that are available for help. Our program this evening will progress as follows. We have several community presenters that will provide information regarding the vaping situation. After the presentations have ended, we will offer a whole group question and answer session. This time will be used for general questions that may benefit the whole audience. And at the end of that session, we will adjourn to the Commons area, where agencies will be set up to provide information and to answer questions that may pertain to a more individualized situation. We're extremely thankful to have the following presenters with us tonight: Jill Paith from Clear Concepts, Mike Hannon from Tri-County Drug and Alcohol, District Magistrate Jonathan Reed, and our first presenter of the evening, Alita Kammerer from Communities That Care.
I'm excited to be here. I have some information that I'm going to share. I attempted to not get very technical with the information, trying to do just more of an overview for folks. But again, at the end, I will attempt to answer any questions you may have, or out in the comments if there are things that you wish I would have expanded on more. So no matter what you call it, it's an e-cigarette. There are so many terms out there, but the electronic nicotine delivery system is an e-cigarette. There are so many terms. I have a few of them listed. You hear of the e-cigs. You've probably heard of Juuls. Hookah is one that you'll hear of a lot. vape sticks, juice sticks, nic sticks, fruit sticks, they're all kind of becoming more and more popular. The dab pens, the dab cards, and then of course your most common term that we hear, or how we refer to all of that, tends to be vapes or vape pens. So vaping, juuling, and dabbing. E-cigarettes are used to deliver nicotine, there's flavoring, marijuana, and even other drugs. It's referred to as vaping or juuling. Juul is a brand name of a device, but it has become a common term for all of it. It was kind of the first one out there, so you'll hear people refer to juuling even if they're not using a Juul device. Some of these deliver higher levels of nicotine than your typical or conventional cigarette. It's very addictive for the youth and or adults if they're using, because the nicotine is so much higher. They can be in a concentration from 0 to 36% more nicotine than what your normal or typical cigarette would be. The e-cigarettes that they're using for marijuana, they'll call it dabbing or dibbing. They're most commonly called dab pens. The reason they say dab pens is because you just need a small amount to kind of dab it or dib it. They do that because the concentrate of THC is 40 to 80% higher than what you would be able to receive if you were, say, purchasing, I'll say, weed or marijuana that maybe some of the older folks would think of as, you know, rolling your joint or whatnot, the actual grass or weed. This synthetic marijuana is 40 to 80% stronger with THC. Vaping devices, they're ready to deliver nicotine, marijuana. It can be anywhere, anytime, and it does include the classroom. The reason we say anywhere, anytime, and especially in the classroom, is these are some of the ways that vapes present themselves. So the first picture on the left, there are some items that are not vapes. However, there are some. I can't read this. So your Juul, unfortunately, I can't point it out to you. There are devices out on the tables from Tri-County Drug and Alcohol that you'll be able to see later. But it's the black stick that kind of looks like the USB drive. A Sarin Vegan Black. These are the ones that look like the highlighters. You can see one of them there in that picture. You pull off the cap. Sarin Drop are the kind of oval-shaped devices. And then they also have the pen vaporizers. And it's truly a writing pen, but it has a twist to it. So you can actually write and or vape. Some of the other ones that I wanted to pull out just because, you know, I think we typically think of like the USB drive look now. We've heard a lot about that. Manufacturers are getting smarter in their quest to make money and target youth. We have cups. We have a pen, a marker, lipstick. Looks like lipstick. The next picture is of inhalers. And that's scary because how do you know if a child needs the inhaler because they need an inhaler or they're inhaling nicotine or marijuana? Altoids. The next one, I don't know if it's easy to see, but it's the look of like your smartwatches or your Apple Watches. You can touch it and the time and all that will still come up, but you can pull it off and it's the vape, the square on your smartwatches. The next one is a look of like your Bluetooth speakers, and then the final picture I have on there is sweatshirts. They're now making sweatshirts in the
string that comes around it is actually a tube that the kids can use to vape. I also have in my list of things, backpacks. That's one of the newer items. And so the kids can put on the backpack. It has a pocket for the device, and the tubing comes up through the shoulder harness, and you just can vape off of your backpack. I wanted to put this in. This is in regards to smokeless tobacco. You know, nicotine in and of itself is so addictive, but this is a way for kids that if they're not going to use a vape device somewhere, these are nicotine patches, they're strips. They look very much like the breath mints on either side of it. The ZYN is a small piece of paper that has a large concentrate of nicotine on it. Put it in their mouth, it dissolves, they've got their nicotine hit that they needed. And this particular brand does not produce spit like you would think of like your chewing tobacco or your smokeless tobacco, so they don't need to have a can or a spittoon or anything like that. So even throughout the day or in different areas, they can be receiving their nicotine that they need because they're addicted, and it's very hard to tell that these are products that they're using. I wanted to put up some statistics nationally. I'm not going to read down through all of them, but it is interesting to me that just flavoring, 8th grade, 60% of the kids responded that they're just doing flavoring. That is so highly unlikely. There are very few items that you can purchase that do not have nicotine in them. 12th grade knew that they were smoking or vaping the nicotine. They're doing so at the 72.2% rate. 12th graders also are saying 46.4% nationally are using marijuana or hash oil in the devices. And very concerning, 6th grade students nationally, over half of them don't really even know what they're vaping. So again, the majority of, and I say Juul users here, that was the statistic, did not know that the product always contains nicotine. So some products always have it. They are making a few things now that maybe don't, but kids don't know the difference with it. And because it is so concentrated, the addiction for the youth is higher than what we've ever seen before, and usually between 2 and 4 hours is an average of when youth report they need another hit. So when you're looking at an 8-hour school day, you've got kids doing it throughout the day. Some local data, Mifflin County Communities That Care utilizes the Pennsylvania Youth Survey data. 6th, 8th, 10th, and 12th grade students take the survey every 2 years. It provides us with a phenomenal amount of information. I pulled out some data pertaining to vaping and also some marijuana use, but 6th grades, this is, so they took it in 2021, this past fall. We do not have all of the results yet, but we do have some preliminary data which indicates that 16 of our 6th graders indicate that they have used any type of e-cigarette device within the past 30 days, and 35 of those 6th grade students indicate that they've used marijuana at some point. Again, 8th grade, you can see we're at 70 students and 120 for marijuana. 10th grade, 89, 156. So it continues to grow as the kids grow. As they get older, our numbers go up. I want to point out for 12th grade, I do not have good data. PACE likes to have at least a 60% or higher participation rate to feel that the responses would be valid and accurate, and we did not have 60% of our 12th grade students respond in the fall, and so statistically we don't have enough to be reflective of the whole class. What we do know is in 2021 the number of students who indicated vaping increased by 128, and that only includes 6th, 8th, and 10th grade. So between those 3 grades, there was an increase of 128 students, and so we can certainly surmise that if we had 12th grade numbers, because we were looking at least 50%, those numbers would dramatically increase as well. We have made some progress with education for the students in 2019. 71% of the 103 students who indicated that they vaped said it was just flavoring. They're learning. We have done some things, there's been some education. Kids are now very well aware that the majority of time it is nicotine that they're vaping. I did put in, we still do have some traditional cigarette use, but the scales are tipping. The vaping is definitely more popular, it's more socially accepted than for teens or youth to be utilizing traditional cigarettes. I put this statistic in just because we know kids are doing these activities in the school building. I think personnel can be as diligent as they want to be, and kids are still going to get away with some things. But 43 10th grade students and 32 12th grade students in the 2009 PACE indicated that they have been drunk or high 1 or more times at school in the past year. So they're definitely using their dab pens or marijuana during the school day as well. I wanted to provide some terminology. I do not want to go down through all of this. If you need me to backtrack, I will, but some of the important terms that I wanted to share is ghosting. You will hear kids use that a lot, either ghost or ghosting, zero or stealth mode. That's when they hide the vapor or the smoke that comes out from vaping. They will either just hold it in and swallow it, or they'll use, shirts or whatever. That's how they get away with doing it in class or hallways. They call it ghosting, and not releasing the vapor. Stig is a disposable vaping device, has as many puffs as an entire pack of cigarettes. So these kids are going through what would take potentially a typical smoker of cigarettes a much longer period of time, and they're getting that amount of nicotine from 20 cigarettes in their jewels. Puff bars is becoming very popular. It's a word that you're hearing a lot. Again, they're disposable. One of the big pulls is they have a gazillion different flavors that are very appealing to the youth. Of course, you're probably familiar with vape juice, e-juice, clouds. There's a lot of things that kids can get into, and it's almost a competition of who can create the biggest cloud, who can make images out of the big cloud. If you ever get on the internet, it's kind of crazy how it's a competition to see who can take in the most in order to produce the most smoke on the outside. getting nicked. So I have heard kids use that term because there is so much nicotine in the devices. Sometimes they can almost take in too much or get nick sick is what they call it, because they take in so much nicotine at one time, and it's almost like overdosing their system. They get heart palpitations and the sweats and blood pressure increases, that type of thing. Graining is when you get sick after hitting some THC again, because the potency is so high. Kids can get sick from that. Crossed is a term you'll hear a lot of the kids use. It's when they drink alcohol and then proceed to hit either dab pens or vaping devices that have marijuana. And again, we've got your alcohol, and it's mixing with such high levels of THC that they call it crossed, because the kids really can become out of it if that happens. Hit, dab, rip, draw, drag, all of those are just terms to take a puff or to inhale from a vaping device. Ripping it or rip it is, again, more of a competition term the kids use to see who can take in who can take in more than other folks, how long you can take that drag, which again increases the amounts. And then the dripping, you'll hear that, and it's often used more in terms with when they're adding THC to things, but it can just be flavoring or other liquids. So, you know, hacking the pods or the cartridges, unfortunately, is not hard to do. If you're not sure how to do it, all you need to do is Google it. You'll find videos that explain it very nicely on how to hack in to your current pods to add whatever it is that you want to add to it. And the other thing that I wanted to mention, just as a point that I don't think kids are aware of, and I'll be honest, I really wasn't aware of this either, but we know that there's a strong correlation between mental health and use of alcohol, tobacco, or other drugs. What I didn't know is that vaping can actually increase the depression and anxiety that the kids are feeling. Often kids will say, well, I do it because I'm depressed, or it helps my anxiety, or I'm too stressed, or I need a hit because I'm all worked up. It in essence, actually has the adverse effect. And I think that's something that kids certainly aren't aware of and need to be educated on. And like I said, that was one thing I learned. I didn't realize that it was an adverse effect for that. So I just as well wanted to put that piece of information in to share with you folks. So hopefully that was some common terms and some information that maybe you weren't aware of. I think the devices and how they look is certainly something that the majority of parents would not be aware of. And so that's what I wanted to share. And Jill is going to come up and speak to you. Oh, just to let you know, these were the resources I used. I wanted to make sure I come in just to make stuff up. But Jill's going to come up and talk about some signs and symptoms and some resources that they have available. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Jill Paith and I work at Clear Concepts Counseling. I've been there forever, I think. It seems like it anyways. So I'm going to talk about some signs and symptoms of vaping, and I want you to think about this while we're talking, is that nicotine is very addictive. And so when we talk about, parents will say, well, is it addictive? Well, absolutely, it's addictive. and you need to be aware of just how addictive that nicotine is. I can send a person to rehab for heroin, and the first thing they'll say to me, "Can I smoke cigarettes?" You know, so we have to remember that it may not be heroin or fentanyl, but it is nicotine, and it's hard to quit. So I think sometimes too, as parents, we feel vulnerable, that we really believe that we don't have the power over our children. We really do. It's just that we have to take a stand and step up to the plate and educate our children. I think that the letters that Mr. Varner sent out, and Mike and Mr. Varner were talking about it, and if nothing else, it generated communication. It generated talks between family members, and I think that's important too. So we're little in numbers tonight, but guess what? There's a lot of powerful information that has been sent out in many different avenues, and that is what matters in our community. So some of the signs and symptoms of vaping are really pretty similar to what you see with other addictions: alcohol, heroin, coke. People can get withdrawals, like sullen, they are depressed, they don't want to interact, they're less motivated, hostile, angry, unpredictable, a lot of mood swings, unable to focus, even though, like Alita was saying, you know, they think, oh, if I take a puff, this is going to help me. It really doesn't help you. There's hyperactivity. I've worked with a couple kids that have been using vapes, and the one kid was in my office like jittering around, and I'm like, this just does not match up with what I would think vaping. And again, I have to do research all the time to keep up with the times. And so when I really started looking into it, yeah, it really causes kids to have a lot more anxiety than what they think it does. So when they're sitting around shaking, it could be withdrawal, but it's more likely that they're just causing their anxiety to get higher. Change in relationships with friends, family issues start to happen. They avoid eye contact. They lock their bedroom doors a lot. They disappear for periods of time that might not be normal. They make a lot of endless excuses. Well, I was here. Oh, I spent all my money at lunch. I bought extra pizza or whatever. You know, I was a kid once. I was very slick at conning my parents. And so we have to remember that even though, you know, we have good kids, they're still going to con you into what they want. So you saw a lot of the devices that Alita showed you out on the tables in the common area. Tri-County Drug and Alcohol, Martha, has a lot of devices that we were all playing with before we come in here today. So I really, you know, take a look at this stuff that's out there. So you're going to find different kinds of devices that may not look like, well, what the heck, it's a regular pen. You know, as a parent, one of the things my daughter used to really get mad at me is because I can go through your room at any given moment, and I can go through your stuff. And did you ever hear this? Well, it's my room, and that's my book bag. Wrong. So I think as parents, we have to change some of the ways we even deal with our children, is that we need to be more proactive. They don't own that book bag. It's in our house. So be diligent about looking through and what you're going to find. And it's not a time to punish your kid either. It's a time to talk to them about the risk. You know, this isn't fun and games anymore when we have kids that are overdosing, or there are people that are just so disrespectful that they're putting fentanyl in vapes. Like, that is insane anymore. You know, by the time you think after being in this field for 30 years that you want to, like, oh, well, you know, there's one more can happen. Now we're going to get fentanyl in vapes. You can smell. There's always a smell with the vapes. And again, I encourage you to go out in the common area. Some of them have a sweet smell. Some of them are very strong tobacco smell. And they have all kinds of different flavors. Again, we talked about e-juices, they dry out your mouth. So again, if we think about, well, what kind of other drug in our history have we heard it dries our mouth out? Marijuana. It gives you cotton mouth. Well, these juices can do the exact same thing. Headaches, nosebleeds. You have to be aware, like, why all of a sudden am I finding all these bloody paper towels in my kid's, garbage can in his bedroom or in the bathroom? Could happen. Some teens and adults who vape nicotine develop very sensitivity to caffeine because they both use caffeine and the nicotine. And so you're getting like a double whammy. So again, we're going to use this to calm ourselves down, and it's not going to calm you down. It's going to make your anxiety worse. Another thing that you find is that even though kids think that they're pretty crafty, and they are, I mean, I got away with a lot of stuff when I was young, but it's, social media says a lot. Or if you just sit and listen to kids talk, because kids like to tell you what they did or tell their friends what they did. And so you can overhear things, or you can, look at your kids. I'm a doodler, so when I'm sitting around, I doodle, and kids doodle things. They'll e-cigarettes or a joint or whatever. Those are signs that there's something going on in that kid's life. I'm not saying they're using, but you need to be aware of what you're looking at. Nicotine leads to a lot of anxiety, difficulties in concentrating, loss of appetite. Vaping marijuana can result again. It's the same as if you were smoking a joint. Bloodshot eyes, dry mouth, thirsty, increased appetite, shifts in mood and behaviors. The physical symptoms that we're seeing is, with the vaping, is trouble breathing, a lot of headaches, cough, dizziness, sore throats, pain chest, allergies, itching. So again, you be aware of like, well, why is my kid like always coughing and hacking? Oh, I have a cold, Mom. Well, no. We all get colds, but you listen and be aware. Kids brag about what they do. So Facebook is a good place to go snooping. There's lots of sites that you can Google, as Alita was saying, that you can find information that you need about vaping, and ask questions. That's why we're here today. So, we're going to give you some time at the end to come out at the tables or at the end here to talk individually. The vapes are heated. That's what makes the smoke, the vape. And so there's little cartridges out there that you can plug them in, like to the side of your computer, which I was like, well, that's slick. I'm pretty clueless sometimes when it comes to stuff, because it's like all the time it changes. So, my daughter's older, but I still need to be aware. It's my responsibility. So some of the other things that we're seeing is difficulty in critical thinking skills, paying attention, and problem solving and memory. We have some smart kids in Mifflin County, and when you sit down and try to have a conversation with them, sometimes they're like stumbling over the words, or they're just having trouble putting sentences together. That's not because they're not bright children. It's because they're impaired, or they're using that has caused impairness. It does cause brain damage. There's significant research out there that drugs cause brain damage. It changes the chemicals in your brain. Fatigue, night sweats, gastro problems, low oxygen levels. A few more things here. As we talked about, if you really want to know and you're looking for things, that sweet smell in the air, unfamiliar pens or USB drives, different paraphernalia laying around, if you see an apple that has a core out of it, there's black stuff around it, it's not because that apple's rotting. It's because that kid was using that to vape through, or to put pot in it and smoke it, or other drugs. If you find little balls of foil laying around, those kids are using that foil for a reason, not just to throw at each other. Sometimes they'll slow down on their caffeine use because they increase the nicotine, which has a lot of caffeine anxiety in it. They drink a lot more water, the nosebleeds I already mentioned. They use a lot of different kinds of batteries, or they're asking you to buy, like, hey mom, I need some more of these, or, you know, can you go buy me these? Again, it's just put it in the back of your head and think about it. Not all of these things are going to happen, but it could be. And again, when they're throwing stuff away, and you're emptying the garbage cans, and you see these weird things in the garbage can, I mean, pay attention. That's what our responsibility is as a parent. Vaping is highly addictive. We are seeing Chris Martinelli, my friend, and I do the tobacco cessation group at Clear Concepts Counseling. Judge Reed gives us referrals. We work with him, and he'll explain a little bit more about that here in a few minutes. And they go through a group. So we are seeing more and more and more vapes and less and less and less cigarettes. And he keeps us busy because you guys in the school district are doing what you're supposed to do. And when kids get in trouble, they get sent through the system. And it's not to punish people, but it's to help people. One last thing I want to say here quick is that I decided, since that there's sometimes people just don't want to get up and ask questions in forums or in public. I don't know if Chris is helping me or not. I might let her off the hook. But this Saturday, March 19th, from 8:30 to 10:30, I will be at Clear Concepts office just offering free services to parents who want to come in and ask questions. It doesn't cost, you don't have to call, just show up. You know, and I'll be there to definitely answer questions. Then again, I will be doing it on Saturday, April 2nd, from 9:30 to 11:30. Yeah, there's papers out in the common area. If you have any questions about them, please pick one up or give our office a call. Thank you very much.
All I want to say is, when Alita, Joe, and I met last week, we agreed on 6 minutes each. I think they cut into my time a little bit. So anyway, my name's Mike Hannon. I've been the executive director of the Drug and Alcohol Commission for 12 years. I've been with the commission for 25 years. A few of you guys that were in the room 20 years ago, probably, in at Lewistown High School, we had, I'd say, well over 1,000 people jammed into the gym that night. We had a big heroin problem at that time. Today, not so many people. I choose to have my glass is half full instead of half empty. And the reason I say that is, back then, we were reactive. Okay, we were reacting to a problem where 1,000 people were directly affected by the heroin use at that time. So they came out in force, and we're here. I think, thanks to Mr. Varner and the school district and the personnel in this room with the agencies, the biggest change I've seen in 25 years is we've become proactive, okay? And I think that says a lot for our administration here at the school district. I think it says a lot for our agencies here within our community. So I want to commend everybody that's been involved with this fight for the last 20 years, and even longer than that. One thing that I wanted to talk about was stigma, okay? It's easy to get on Facebook. It's easy to post comments about the Narcan distribution. Everybody has an opinion on everything. Okay, one thing that I say, and some of you guys that have been in meetings with me, I'm going to say it again. If this room had 100 people in it, and I said, everybody raise your hand who's affected by drugs or alcohol in one way or another, 80% of them would raise their hand. Okay, that doesn't mean you were addicted yourself, doesn't mean you had a family, friend, or loved one. You could be the victim of a crime, okay? So 80% of the people in that room. And what I say is the other 20% are lying about it. Okay, everybody's affected by drugs and alcohol. Putting your head in the sand, acting like there's not a problem, isn't going to help the situation. That's why we're here tonight. Also, I'm going to announce it a little bit later, but we're going to have a Narcan Distribution event tomorrow at our office at 31 South Dorcas Street. Get on Facebook and you see people saying ignorant stuff like let them die. It was their decision to do it, okay? And I say this in meetings. I'm fat, I'm old, I don't exercise, I drink too much, and I smoke. It's my choice to do that. I did it to myself. Does that mean EMS shouldn't save me if I fall over here today? Okay, we do make choices, and unfortunately, sometimes there's bad consequences with that. Our office, we do case management services. We primarily do screening and assessment for treatment. We also pride ourselves in the no wrong door approach. We provide treatment and services to uninsured, underinsured individuals. Okay, but if you have insurance, you can still come to our office. Our staff will help you navigate the insurance system if we have to. That's another big change that we've had over the last 10 years, I would say. 15 years ago, our office was out of funds. If someone was seeking drug or alcohol treatment 10 or 15 years ago, we didn't have the funds to send people to treatment at that time. We pretty much hid in our office and hoped our phone didn't ring. We have more money accessible to us now through grants and different opportunities. And so one message that I want to get out there today is if anybody needs drug or alcohol services for vaping, for fentanyl, for opiates, for marijuana, for alcohol, we have the services and we have the resources. So you can contact our office, 717-242-1446. Is that right? We're used to our cell phones, I guess, just to hit it. But we don't provide treatment. We have providers like Clear Concepts, a few other outpatient providers in the area. We have Pyramid Healthcare, who I can't see her, she might be out in the lobby. But we have contracts with about 23 or 24 inpatient facilities that we can access. All you have to do is call our office, and we'll help you access those services. The Narcan Distribution, I did mention that. Narcan isn't a treatment, okay? Narcan is a tool to help people survive and lower overdose deaths, period. It's a nasal spray. Act 139, which is a good Samaritan law, basically relieves everybody of any liability issues if they do the training that's involved with it. So, a couple other things with that is it's easy to administer. Sometimes it takes more than one dose, and it is highly effective against opiate withdrawals. Okay. That's pretty much it for me. I think I kept it within 6 minutes. Does anybody have any questions or anything about any of that stuff? So, all right, who's next? Jonathan? All right, Judge Reed, thank you.
Good evening. I think I just said something, so I apologize for that. I need a place to put my notes, if I may. You can see me, but I can't see you. So, but thank you for being here, and I'd also like to thank everyone who is involved, the school and community, in putting this presentation together and giving me the opportunity to just speak a little bit. And Mike, I'll try to keep it within 6 minutes, but no promises. My name is Jonathan Reed, as you may know. I am a magisterial district judge, and I was asked to come here, of course, to speak about my experience and perspective on dealing with or handling tobacco and school violations, okay? I am one of 3 magisterial district judges. There's 3 districts within the county within Mifflin County. One of the unique challenges my office faces is that we receive a disproportionate number of juvenile offenders because my district encompasses the majority of the school district. In fact, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the only 2 schools within Mifflin County School District that aren't home, that don't have their home in my jurisdiction would be Stroh's Mills Elementary and Indian Valley Elementary, and is that elementary and intermediate?
Correct.
So those are the only ones that don't. The remainder of the school district is within my jurisdiction, meaning the majority of the tobacco, to keep it short instead of saying tobacco in school violations, just tobacco violations are filed in my office. And so I'll just provide you with a little bit information on that. Before I kind of give you the statistics or numbers as far as maybe how many citations you might see within a school year, in a given school year, I'd like to just give you a little background to explain maybe the trend we're seeing that Jill in fact alluded to, an increase in vaping. Traditionally, tobacco in school, the prohibition defined tobacco as we would traditionally think of it, which is what? Cigarettes, chewing tobacco, cigars, although I don't think we ever sell cigars. So, surprisingly enough, this may be a surprise to you, but it wasn't illegal for students to have, and Mr. Varner's smiling, but it was not illegal for students to bring or possess or use electronic cigarettes, vapes, or as Alita described it, I believe it's the ENDS, or electronic nicotine delivery system. Basically, when I refer to electronic cigarettes, I'm talking about all of that. Electric, pens or whatever that you can smoke nicotine products. So there was a loophole, a technicality, and that prevented the school from filing citations whenever they discovered someone with a vape or electronic cigarette in the school. So they were limited to basically, it was probably already against school policy, but treating it as a violation of school policy and whatever sanctions they can provide as a result of finding or discovering a student. However, the legislature caught on to that loophole, and in 2019, they amended the tobacco law to include in the definition a list of, as Alita was describing and Joel was describing, all of the different, I'm really not doing a very good job here. I'm working the computer, I'm working, I really don't like staying behind mics, but I don't know if you can hear me or not. So basically, the loophole's closed, and that law went into effect July 1st of 2020, and I'm sure the schools remember it well. So that was the beginning of last school year. Now, it's illegal to possess or use electronic cigarettes, vapes, Juuls, and the school can start citing. And what we see when and I'll go ahead and share some numbers with you, is an obvious correlation between the start of that just the trend, the upward trend in the tobacco. And the point I'm trying to make with regard to the trend I'm referring to is, it's all cited under the same, whether it's a cigarette or chewing tobacco or a cigar or a vape or a Juul, it's all under the same statutory heading. So when our system leaves something to be desired, but when we enter it into the system, it all shows up as a tobacco violation. So it's generic. And unfortunately, I don't have the ability to decipher between tobacco and vape, but as I'll explain, there's a clear upward trend, and from my experience, it's vape that this is attributable to. So just again, by way of providing some numbers, I came into office in 2016. The 2015 to 2016 school year, when we do a search for tobacco in school, our system shows a total of 3. This is obviously before the vape law. 2016 to 2017 school year, total of 5. So we'd be talking like your traditional tobacco products. if anyone here can correct me, those numbers seem low, but in 2017 to 2018 school year, again, still before the vape law, a total of 39. In 2018 to 2019 school year, a total of 19. And then 2019 to 2020, a total of 17. Remember, that was a COVID year as well. That started the tail end of school as COVID, so 17. Now, enter the vape law. 2020 to 2021, again, COVID. I don't know how much school there was last school year, but there were 56, enter the vape law, 56 tobacco violations. And in my recollection, rarely did I see cigarettes, chewing tobacco. It was vape, 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 vape. It's safe to say 95% of those were vape. Now, this school year, we're 3/4 of the way through, total of 100. So if you can't tell that there's a clear and dramatic increase, we have still, are only 3/4 of the way through the school year and have handled 100 violations. So I have noticed, I also just have a few more statistics, just kind of a question in my mind, at least from last year and this year it was a little easier to get this information. As far as male versus female, last year it was about 71% male, female was about 21%. I don't know what trends that everyone in the community is seeing, but, and then this year it's 60% male, 40% female. So, I mean, definitely male, but definitely female, male and female. It seems this year is a good indicator, because we're here all year. The vape law's in full effect, so you're kind of seeing now 100, so basically 60 male, 40 female. And what I have noticed as well, just observations, is the age range, middle school to junior high. Age range 12 to like 15, I think. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not saying that we don't see. I mean, we see from 12 to 21. But that's an interesting age range. I have some ideas as to what the correlation may be there, but it's only an opinion. I'll probably just reserve that. But so I guess the next thing I want to cover then, just hopefully in closing here, it won't take me too long, but just to help you understand, use possession is illegal in school. I'm not going to read the law to you, but the consequences are it's considered a summary offense, which is low level. That's the lowest grading, criminal grading. I know it sounds harsh to say criminal, but this stuff is in the crimes code. It's a summary offense. We'll refer to it as a summary offense. It's a $50, up to a $50 fine. However, whenever you add court costs to that, that ends up being, the way I treat it is a first offense $25, anything second or subsequent $50. That ends up being then for a first $229.25, for a second or subsequent $254.25 of 12-year-olds, 13-year-olds, 14-year-olds, 15-year-olds. Parents typically shrug their shoulders and say, not my problem. I disagree with them. However, we have a child, a young person, I can only enforce it against them, and at my level, we're very limited. I can't put them on probation, I can't send them away, I have fines and costs, or as we'll get into a little bit here, is adjudicatory alternatives, which I'll explain. So, the law does, aside from the consequence I told you, the black and white consequence, the law allows me to use adjudication alternatives. The example Jill was given were the classes that she offers through Clear Concepts. They refer to them, I believe, still as a tobacco cessation program. The idea is they sit through this class, the offender, or the youthful offender, or the young person, and if they complete the class, it's free of charge, then their charges are dismissed without having to pay fines or costs. It's this preventative education type of thing. It's a way for them to take responsibility. And so I'll preface that a little bit. I think as a judge, from my perspective, certainly when it comes to using adjudication alternatives, I'm thankful for them. And in fact, played a role in developing the youthful offender program that we have, which is used for first-time offenders And this is the specific example for tobacco, is the educational component. So if a young person comes in front of me, pleads guilty, expresses some remorse, shows some willingness to take responsibility, I think it's appropriate for me, for a first time, to offer this class. And we're quite thankful when you think of 100 cases. It's a tremendous help for us to find a way for them to take responsibility and hopefully learn something. Because I also explained to that young person, if they come back before me, there will be no other opportunities. In other words, it's going to be fines and costs. As a practical matter, it's difficult to enforce fines and costs against a young person, especially when you're talking 12, 13, 14, if their parents aren't going to pay it for them. There are other ways, practical ways we find by giving them community service to work off the fines and costs. But I like the educational component. It's a great help. I think it's useful. You know, I feel it's very important for me to distinguish between, you know, youthful indiscretion and budding criminal activity. You know, it's important for me to treat the two differently. And emphasize to the young people that come before me that, you know, it's not just a school policy they violated, it's the law. And that makes them a lawbreaker. I'll give them the opportunity to have that charge dismissed. And that way it doesn't follow them throughout the rest of their life. But second time, they need to understand the law is not a paper tiger. And so that is my effort to encourage them to avoid repeating a pattern of inappropriate behavior. And the way that I see it, you know, the majority of my career has been spent working with young people, whether it be in detention facilities or halfway houses and residential treatment facilities. As a probation officer, it was young people with mental health and behavioral issues. And I have a heart for them. And I knew coming into this that this was going to be a unique challenge in my office. And, you know, the community really pulls together. I appreciate the resources we have to handle first-time offenders, especially when we're dealing with young people who are extremely impressionable, who are making decisions they don't maybe realize are going to follow them the rest of their lives. And I try to ask them, do you have goals? Do you have ambitions? You know, this type of behavior can catch up with you and follow you through life and affect those goals and ambitions. So if there's any way, shape, or form we can redirect them, we certainly try to do that. There's a lot of things I'd like to say, but I see Mike looking at his watch. I'm pretty sure I have 12 minutes I have. So I'll answer your questions afterwards, but I really appreciate your attentiveness and for just giving me an opportunity to share a little bit. It's what we do. I see a lot of it. So thank you for your time.
We just want to once again thank our presenters for being willing to put this presentation together for us. And at this time, we're going to open up for question and answers for the good of the whole. If anyone has a general question regarding vaping or the presentations that you saw this evening, stand up and Mr. DeArmond will be around.
My question regarding vaping, the vapors that are expelled, are they equally as dangerous as like secondhand smoke?
Okay, so I'm sorry, I was taking the microphone. Can you repeat that question for me?
Well, with regard to vaping, the vapors that are expelled from the person that's using the device, are those vapors equally as dangerous as secondhand cigarette smoke?
Actually, there's research that says they're more dangerous. That the second-hand smoke from a vape can be more dangerous or harmful than from a traditional cigarette.
Well, Terry asked me this question. So a young gentleman walks into a boy's bathroom and someone is vaping with THC in the liquid. Do we have to worry about that young gentleman who's secondhand smoke in the bathroom getting high? Jill?
No, not really.
Okay.
I mean, there mean, I'm never gonna say no, but the odds are not in the favor that that would happen.
Okay. Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions for the good of the whole?
Okay, Jill and the group there. Are you seeing parents trying to get more involved? We talked about the heroin situation, it was bad, but are you seeing parents getting more involved with the problem of vaping through Chuck Reed's program and parents talking with you and your program, Jill?
I mean, these are questions that are hard to answer, but I mean, no. Unfortunately, no. You know, I mean, we have parents that'll maybe ask questions, but their concerns are, is my kid, what time does this class start, when's it over, and where's my kid's certificate so I can give it to the judge? You know, so, no, I don't think we're seeing an increase in that, unfortunately.
And I agree with Jill with that. I don't think we are seeing an increase, but we better be. Okay, but the reason I say that is some of that stuff, that one picture you had up there where there were like highlighters and things like that, we need to be aware of what our kids have and what they, half that stuff I wouldn't even know. I've been in this business for 25 years and it evolves. A lot of us older people in here, it was candy cigarettes at the grocery store. That's what they used to get you hooked on cigarettes at that age. Now they're giving you tools to manipulate the system and your parents and fly under the radar. So I have a good friend of mine. He doesn't have any kids. And his favorite line is, don't be naive, ask questions. That was the biggest thing I got out of Jill's presentation, was ask questions. And don't think it can't happen to your kid, okay, because it does. It doesn't matter what economic level you're at, rich, poor, or whatever, drug and alcohol addiction does not discriminate, okay, period. I probably know more people who are in the upper class that have had kids overdose and die than ones that were lower class, okay? So don't be naive and pay attention to what your kids are doing. And I think that, listen, we're professionals, we do this, and we're all out there looking at this stuff on the table like it's new to us, okay? So just continue to educate yourself.
So, I'm definitely, I just want to thank the administration here for being proactive, because I have to tell you, I looked at those things on the table and thought, well, there's a highlighter, and it wasn't. And I taught for 30 years, so I would have never in a million years been able to look at some of those things and not have known what it was. It just would not have, it just wouldn't have resonated with me. And I think that parents don't know what they don't know. Unfortunately, they don't know what they don't know. So being proactive, sending the letters home, and being able to talk about it, showing the video of tonight to the students so they understand. It's been on the news more. Mr. Stiers asked about the secondhand smoke, and kids don't know that. If somebody goes down in a restroom or whatever and they want to help them or pick something up, what's the risk factor to that? And so educating them, kudos to all you here for being proactive, but my big thing is parents don't know what they don't know.
Yeah, and honestly, like I said, there's a lot of stuff we don't know. A lot of the stuff is new and cutting edge. The information that's put out there changes every day. One of the biggest things that I've seen as far as scariness with doing this for so long was lacing fentanyl and marijuana. Apparently we're going to get it in vapes and things like that. A kid could be at a party. We were all kids. We were all been at parties. Somebody says, here, use this vape. And they might think it's just a harmless vape. There could be something in there that's going to kill you. Okay, same thing with marijuana. Everybody minimizes marijuana use anymore. You know, and I hate to bring this up, but tobacco busters should come back in this school district, okay? It ended probably 10 years ago, I would say. Jill and I were responsible for doing the trainings. Tobacco, everybody says marijuana is the gateway drug back then. We said it's tobacco. It's evolved to vaping. I think we need a program like that for vaping because we don't know a lot of stuff.
One of the things, I was interviewed by Fox 43 News, I'm a movie star now. One of the things I said to him, she asked me a question of if there was one thing I could change, and I said, educating kids at a younger age. You know, because by the time kids are in middle and high school, not that we're all able to learn at any given time in our lives, but are they really going to listen? You know, and so you teach kids at a younger age, and you continue to teach them through till they're older. They're going to, oh yeah, I heard about this vaping, and oh yeah, I really shouldn't do this. One thing that I don't know someone mentioned, but if you find vapes, I mean, right now, I'm not like a paranoid person, but I would not pick up a vape off of the floor if I saw one right now. I would have gloves on, or I'd be standing there staring at it until somebody came and got that, because if it is laced with fentanyl, I mean, it's very dangerous. So, you know, if you find them, you can take them to police station and they will test them for you. So, Andre French is regional. I mean, I've been friends with him forever too, and him and I have had many conversations about this. I'm sure that Rob back there knows about this as well.
It's really a scary thing. You don't know where we're going to be. You know, the problem, and I think Judge Reed knows where I'm coming from here, is the vaping law they passed has no teeth to break it at all. You know, these stores and small minute marts and stuff are selling this as their main products in the building. If you get out and go in any of them, it's a whole big section of that. And you know, they sell $5,000 worth of vaping materials a week for a $200 fine anyway. So, and then we have coming, you know, the possible legalization of marijuana, and it's just going to overrun your schools. That's my opinion. And where we're at now and what's coming. That's a scary thing.
What's the age to buy? Like, basically.
It's 21. But we have students that are sitting outside the doors and just waiting.
Mr. Garner, you're going to have to help me with this. But recently there was a lawsuit filed against these companies that they have lost. Am I on the right page?
Well, with the Juuls?
Yes.
It's in litigation right now.
Okay. My question to this group here is, were you familiar with that lawsuit, and is that lawsuit going to put a dent into this problem?
I'm not familiar with that lawsuit. I was familiar with the tobacco settlement lawsuit early in the 2000s, and now Pennsylvania is part of the national lawsuit for the opiate settlement for Johnson & Johnson and the pharmaceuticals that actually marketed pills and opiates. And I was just at a meeting today. Pennsylvania is going to get $1.some billion over the next 18 years to deal with opiates, and that's really the fentanyl and heroin and stuff like that. But I'm not familiar with the vapes. If I had to guess, it would be similar to the way the tobacco settlement was passed down, as well as this opiate settlement, where it would be distributed evenly throughout the counties. That's what I would hope would happen.
This was a nationwide
It is.
lawsuit that we became a part of.
We are. There's 595 school districts across the state, across the United States. It's in the Northern California Circuit Court. We did. We had the opportunity to join that, and then they were looking for, like Chicago was a part of it, but then they were looking to offset that. So a poorer, more rural area. So we gathered our our information that we had from the surveys, our SAP information, etc. We redacted all the names and we submitted that information for that. That's what Mr. Stires is talking about. So, I mean, I think it's going to hit them just like with that. But actually, the affidavit I just got from the first court proceeding, these companies actually set up parties and they would actually give free samples. So if you were a big influencer on social media, if I'm saying that right. Yes. Okay, Oksana is. So then you bring your friends and then you would give, like that flavored Jewel out there that smells like banana. I was watching, some people were appalled by that. Like Mr. Maidens, and I walked in, he thought it smelled like a medicine. I thought it smelled darn good. But it's kind of funny. But that's what these companies were doing. And I'm scared with Jonathan Reed, Judge Reed said, did you see it's getting more popular with the females? The little bit that I've done, I think they're marketing it now more towards females as well. It's classy, it's the Fruitalicious flavors. That scares me. And, you know, we hit rewind. We know we had some opioids of some sort into these vapes, okay? And for whatever reason, luckily the last few we've gotten have now tested negative. So it's like we had that hiccup. So somebody out there was playing, someone had some bad stuff going on, and, you know, maybe some discussions, it helped. Maybe they had moved to a different area of the state or whatever, or they decided to go low or whatever. But that was a very scary 2 weeks. As much as I appreciate everybody here, if you got a gentleman, Mark Cross, in here, if you haven't watched his video and you want goosebumps, I mean, some people said, oh, that letter, that doesn't hold a match to what his video presentation to the student body was. The last time I looked, it was 4,500 views. It could, Roger, probably a lot more now.
They're close to 6,000.
6,000. He's an influencer. And all joking aside, he's an influencer to our kids at that high school. So I am a little bit disappointed. We don't have a very crowd, but you know what? I'm appreciative of the ones that did come tonight and the ones that are watching online. So if you can get that opportunity, watch Mr. Cross. And here's a gentleman that's going to walk out the door June 30th with a lot of knowledge, and he puts it very kid-friendly. He loves our kids. He's trying to get them the help. We don't want to punish kids. Judge Reed's exactly right. That's nice. When you have to Narcan a kid in this school, you don't want to be there that day. One is too many. And it happened multiple times in that 2-week period. So, but we can't rest our laurels. We cannot put our guard down. Okay? And that's what we all have to do here. We got 2 board members. We got people in the community that are at the board meetings. We have our guidance counselors here. We got some online people. And these guys up here, Karen Nodes here. I mean, it's just, Martha, I mean, we're varsity, this effort tonight. So please, when you guys leave, check some of those out there. They're very impressive. And that's just want to make sure everybody knew. I want to say thank you. And I wanted to say thanks to Mark Crossan and our 2 board members for coming tonight.
I just have a quick question, if that's okay. Thank you so much for doing this tonight, and I really loved the slides because it was very informative. And sometimes I feel that when the letters go out and you're just saying, you know, you found 3 or 5 that were tested, to some parents they may just kind of shrug their shoulders and go, well, our school community is so big, 5 is not a big deal. But that data that you had was awesome. I'm very visual. Is there any way we can push that deck out to the school community, and maybe when parents have a few minutes to look that over, it may have the light bulb go off to where they say,
You can get the PowerPoints.
you know, we should talk to our kids.
It's not finalized yet.
Okay, yes. to your point, yes.
Thank
I'll find a way to make it happen.
Thank you.
Sure.
I think it helps sometimes.
Yeah, I agree.
You know, we a couple months ago, we did a presentation. I did one of my first 120-day superintendency, and then I did use, Alita gave me permission, helped me navigate it, because it was new. It's not finalized data yet, but we had 40% of our 10th graders thought about suicide. It's not just this either. There's a lot on our young people's plates right now. So when you start putting that totality together, we all might not agree on everything, but right there we do agree. We can get some information together, and knowledge is power. Have that difficult conversation, like Jill kept saying. And I was at that Sadie Hawkins dance, and right after that letter came out, I was pulling kids that I knew, and of course I was grabbing some wrestlers, you know, and I said, what thing happened with your parents with the letter? Like, yes, Mr. Varner, we had to talk about the letter.
Yeah.
Well, good.
Yeah, good.
We need more parents to be like Jill, going through the garbage.
My favorite thing to do.
And you might as well.
Right?
Save your kids'
Lunchtime?
life, that's right.
Eat for a half an hour, search for a half an hour.
They don't even have to know.
Oh, no, and it'll stay right in this room, take it out of the video.
Well, I do think that, you know, some of the comments in regards to parents not knowing what they don't know is so very true, and I think that there's a lot of things that is occurring. So we see marijuana legalized in other places, and so a lot of times it's like, well, it's legal here, but the education of how much more potent the THC is, you know, the medical marijuana stuff that's coming out, that synthetic marijuana, like the manufactured marijuana is just so different than what anybody has been used to back in the day. And for parents, I think a lot would say, well, my kid won't smoke. Kids don't see this as smoking. This is not smoking a cigarette. A lot of kids maybe wouldn't smoke a cigarette, but they will vape. They'll vape for the flavor, they'll vape for the fun. It is marketed towards kids. And, you know, one of the other trends that we're seeing is, years ago, we had the billboards with the people smoking the cigarette. They were always smoking in the TV shows. That kind of all went away. It's back. A lot of the shows on Netflix that the kids are binge watching, and with the quarantine time and more binge watching, a lot of those shows are showing vaping as a very natural thing that the youth are doing. So they're not getting the message that it's not a good thing. And so not only do the kids need it, but the parents need to realize they don't see this. Maybe your kids wouldn't smoke a cigarette. They might very well vape.
I just said something I wanted to add. I appreciate your information about the anxiety and depression. And school counselors this year, we are seeing such an increase in numbers with depression and anxiety. And just ties into the whole big picture. This year, you know, I reached out to Mr. Varner, and just with the statistics alone from our mental health staff, we've added 2 additional staff. And the majority of that is depression, anxiety. So now when I meet with students, I have another question to follow up and ask kids, because I wasn't really thinking about, you know, are you vaping? I see a lot of kids in my office that are anxious on a daily basis. So that was good information. Thank you.
I don't know what time is. Apparently I take up way too much of it. But on a side note about that, if any of you are familiar with the Positive Vibes group that is here in the high school, that was formed from data that is very concerning about the mental health of our kids, and students wanted to pull together and kind of reduce stigma and do some kind things and increase school climate for positivity and whatnot. But point is, I just had, Mr. Crossan has been a
super supporter of that, and kids were excused from school March 10th to come to a meeting with me and some other CTC folks. And we viewed a lot of vaping videos that are out there for like public service announcements, and one of them was talking about kids are vaping because it helps their stress, it helps their anxiety, and it talks about how that's not it. And that's one of the, we had, I don't know, 12 videos maybe we watched, and we picked the top 4, and those kids picked that one because they didn't know it. So that will be coming out through CTC, like on our Facebook and different places. We're just going to try to do some PSAs with information on vaping. But I found it interesting that that's one of the top 4 the kids voted for because they don't know that.
I have a question. With all the information that's been provided tonight, and with me being well aware of the fact that changing curriculum and bringing in new programs to a school can be very expensive, and it takes a lot of people working together. And I know the past couple of years with everything that went on with the pandemic, everybody's working with a lot of uncertainty. But I wonder what is the feeling about changing the health curriculum to make more emphasis on this kind of education, so that you could look at it developmentally from kindergarten through 12th grade with the information that's shared to try and get to the kids before all of this starts. And I know that's long term, I understand that, but at the same time, this apparently is a very prevalent problem that needs to be taken care of as soon as possible. And I know there's funds, and I know there's teachers that have to be hired, and I deeply appreciate that. But I think that from what I'm hearing, it would be a good investment. And again, I know that's asking teachers to do just one more thing, and I teach, and I know you have a lot to do in a day. But teachers and administrators and school directors and the community love our children. They're our greatest resource. And so I just wonder what the thoughts are about how that might work into a health curriculum or even a new and separate curriculum.
I'm going to write myself a note. I didn't want to think I was ignoring you. And then I'll bring that up with our central cabinet team at our next meeting on Wednesday. We meet every Wednesday, so I'll bring that up, Mrs. Dowers. Thank you. Because I'm sure we have assets in the community to help as well with that.
Well, in the 7th grade, we are doing the life skills program, which is it's a drug prevention program, research-based, and I think probably 2 years ago, it's like 12 lessons, so every 7th grader will get it in the middle school. I think 2 years ago, they added one lesson that has to do with the vaping, but it's definitely a beneficial program. It's research-based, but that's just 1 year out of their life.
But research maybe should be earlier than grade 7.
Absolutely. Yep.
Jonathan, what's your youngest you've ever had?
I think it's 12.
12? That'd be right around that age. So we got to get them before they get...
Where they've already started.
We have the
Yes.
data showing 6th grade use, so.
Yeah.
So till we get them in 7th grade, they're like, oh yeah,
That 4 or 5. Mr. Maines, we're going to write that down. We talk about it next week.
I just want to say too that the program that we fund for Clear Concepts to do through Judge Reed's office is going to switch out next year. We upgraded to a newer program. Well, I haven't talked to Judge Reed about it yet. It's from the American Lung Association. It's called In-Depth, and it's 90% about vaping, but it does talk about tobacco use throughout it. So we're switching that program up to a more updated program.
I will say on the resource table for communities that care, we have a lot of handouts. Maybe some of those would be beneficial if they're visual. They're more in depth than what I had up here. But I do have some of those resources, and there's a lot out there to share with kids that they can text, because it's easier for kids to text and talk about some things. A lot of things happening. Take a look. I will be honest, I haven't researched all the programs that are out there, but there's certainly a lot of information we can provide the kids if that's what they're looking for.
Jade, can we go on the auditorium lobby now?
Absolutely.
All right, thank you.
Thank you again to our presenters. We really appreciate it.
I gave it back.